Hey everyone! Picture this. It's March 30th, 1998, and the most feared woman in Florida is about to face her final 10 hours. Judy Buenoano, known as the Black Widow, had spent 13 years on death row for poisoning her husband, drowning her own son, and bombing her fiancé's car. But here's what's absolutely chilling. The woman investigators called the coldest person they'd ever met was about to show her true face for the first time. Today, we're diving deep into those final 10.5 hours, from her unusual last meal to the moment she was literally carried into the execution chamber, paralyzed by fear. Trust me, this story will give you goosebumps. The making of a monster. Unthinkable. Let's start from the beginning because Judy's story is like a masterclass in how not to be a human being. Born in 1943 in Texas, her childhood was rough. Her mom died when she was 4, and she claimed her stepmother abused her terribly. But here's where it gets scary. At just 14 years old, she attacked her entire family with hot grease. Hot grease, people. That landed her 2 months in adult prison. But wait, it gets worse. She became a nursing assistant, someone who's supposed to help people, and started her killing spree in 1971. Her method? Arsenic poisoning. She'd slowly poison her victims, then collect their life insurance. Over 12 years, she murdered her husband, James Goodyear, her boyfriend, Bobby Joe Morris, and get this, her own 19-year-old son, Michael, whom she first poisoned into paralysis, then took canoeing and let him drown. The woman collected over $240,000 in insurance money. That's like $500,000 today. She literally turned murder into a business. The downfall. When greed meets stupidity. This is the point at which Judy made the unthinkable error. In 1983, she was engaged to John Gentry and purchased a life insurance policy on him worth a staggering $500,000. The first thing she did was try her normal method of poisoning him, which consisted of giving him capsules labeled vitamin C that were actually paraformaldehyde. She became impatient when things didn't work as quickly as she had hoped. And this is where she went from being a criminal mastermind to, well, let's just say that she was no longer qualified to be a criminal mastermind. She detonated a bomb inside his vehicle. It is a bomb. After 12 years of poisonings that were undetected and silent, she decided to go with the method that was the loudest and most noticeable. Unfortunately, John could not survive the car explosion. Her entire criminal enterprise suffered a blow as a result. Turbulence for building bombs were discovered in her bedroom by the police, and they matched the shards of the car. It was found that the pills containing vitamin C contained poison. On the other hand, the real horror show started when they started digging up bodies, in a straightforward sense. The opening of the casket that had been buried for 13 years by James Goodyear resulted in the discharge of a visible cloud and the most peculiar odor. The investigators reported that his body was surprisingly undamaged, even though the arsenic had preserved it so effectively. Can we proceed with Judy's last hours? I encourage you to hit the like button if you find this story as intriguing and scary as I do. Additionally, if you want to learn more about real crime cases like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Believe me when I say that you won't want to miss what comes after this. The trials and the mask. Timetable. In the years 1984 and 1985, Judy was subjected to several trials. For her attempt to kill John Gentry, she was sentenced to 12 years in jail. For drowning her son Michael, she was sentenced to life in prison. And for poisoning her husband James, she was sentenced to death. It was the prosecutor who referred to her as a Black Widow spider who preyed on her young. And frankly, what do you think? Like adhesive, the nickname stayed with me. Judy kept up this icy demeanor throughout each and every one of the trials. One investigator reported that she was the coldest person he had ever encountered. She was the kind of person whose glance could give him goosebumps, even on hot summer days. She displayed no emotion or regret, and she denied everything. The entire "I found God in prison" charade was something that she attempted to perform during her sentence for the death penalty. However, nobody believed her. During her 13 years on execution row, she appealed and appealed her convictions. You name it, whether it be allegations of poor counsel or violations of the Constitution. However, each and every court affirmed her guilt and sentenced her to death. The electric chair controversy. It is at this point that things start to take an interesting turn. Throughout the 1990s, the electric chair in Florida, which was affectionately referred to as Old Sparky, had been significantly malfunctioning. Witnesses stared in horror as smoke and flames flew up to a foot high from the forehead of the captives during two executions that went catastrophically wrong in the years 1990 and 1997. It's fair that the team in favor. APPW.C, where the several darties of execution is literally catching fire, you might want to think about implementing some quality control, right? The kind of thing you want to wing is not exactly what you want to do. Old Sparky was accused of violating the cruel and unusual punishment clause, which was a point that Judy's legal team immediately brought up. Bringing in specialists who asserted that the chair was essentially kept together using spare parts, including an electrode constructed from an old army boot, was one of the conclusions they reached. The authorities retaliated by claiming they had resolved the issues by replacing the headpiece with natural sea sponges rather than synthetic ones. Even though the Florida Supreme Court ruled in favor of the state, 3 justices penned harsh dissents in which they essentially asked how many botched executions it would take before they would even have a hearing on the matter. The final 10.5 hours, when the mask finally cracked. On March 29, 1998, Judy's last-ditch arguments were unsuccessful. On Sunday evening, the Supreme Court of the United States of America rejected her last-ditch plea. Judy Buenoano was utterly powerless over her circumstances for the very first time in decades. The protocol of the final night is extremely stringent. Inmates on death row are transferred to a specialized holding cell and monitored at regular intervals of 15 minutes. Their family members and spiritual advisors can pay them their final visits. After taking one final shower on the morning of the execution, they are provided sedatives, and then it is time for them to be executed. First, let me tell you something fascinating regarding Judy's choice of lunch for the last time. The majority of offenders go all out, preparing extravagant meals in the form of childhood favorites and, comfort food. Still, Judy? She asked for hot tea with lemon, fresh strawberries, tomato wedges, broccoli, and steamed asparagus. She also wanted a hot beverage, and that's it. She ate nutritious meals for her final dinner. The choice that she made reveals a great deal about her mental state. She continued to attempt to maintain control, even though she was in danger of dying. The purpose of this was not to provide solace or evoke feelings of nostalgia. Rather, it was to exercise control over the only thing she had left, the food she consumed. 7:02 a.m., the moment everything changed. The execution of Judy Buenoano took place on March 30th, 1998 at precisely 7:02 a.m. and guards arrived to accompany her to the death room. And at this same moment, an unexpected occurrence occurred. The mask finally broke apart into its component parts. A sudden and obvious display of fear came over the woman who had been ice cold for the past 27 years. Does he mean the same investigator who described her as the most icy person he had ever encountered? According to him, it was the very first time he had ever witnessed her displaying any emotion. The guards had to literally carry her into the chamber because she was so gripped by dread that she could not move. Take into consideration the fact that this widow had composed herself while she saw her spouse succumb to arsenic poisoning. Until he passed away, she had been holding her son, who was paralyzed, underwater. A car bomb had been detonated by her. But was she going to die by herself? Her eyes were screwed tight, her hands were clenched, and she was unable to walk. By the time she was strapped into Old Sparky, she was sitting in this enormous wooden chair that she hardly occupied. The warden made a request for her final remarks. Still refusing to open her eyes and look at the witnesses, she spoke only 2 words in a hushed voice. No, sir. Flurry electric shocks were delivered over 38 seconds at 7:08 a.m. An additional issue was observed by witnesses who saw smoke curling from her right leg. The death of Judy Buenoano was confirmed at 7:13 a.m. Freezes. The final 10.5 hours of one of the most notorious female serial killers in the United States of America have been presented to you. The contrast between her lifelong veneer of cool control and those final seconds of utter horror is the thing that hits me the most. Even though she had been able to manipulate everyone around her for nearly 3 decades, she ultimately found that she could not influence her own fear. Cruiser, I have a question for you. Do you believe that the final fear was a form of justice? Or do you think that her acts can be explained by the abuse she experienced as a child? In addition, what about old Sparky? The execution of Judy was actually one of the final pieces of evidence that led to the state of Florida switching to the use of lethal injection in the year 2000. Please share your ideas with me in the comments section below. If this in-depth investigation into true crime piqued your interest, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to further cases like this one.